like you, one of the most beautiful rural parts of our country. My neighbour is a dairy farmer. In fact, David's sheep, the mules, all come from the auction mart in Wensleydale up near me, and the NFU reliably tells me that I represent more sheep than people where I am. So I don't get to go home at the weekends unless I'm getting our farming policy right. And actually, perhaps one of the most rewarding things about being a Member of Parliament for my part of the world the past 9 years is getting the opportunity to spend time with you and your colleagues and see what an extraordinary job you do for our country. Now, I grew up in Southampton. I didn't come from a farming background, so it's been a real privilege to understand the contribution that you make to our society. I know that you all do what you do, work the hours that you do, not for the money, obviously. You do it because you care deeply about producing the food that our country needs and wants. You do it because you care about stewarding the landscape, because it doesn't look like this by accident. And you do it because your family have done it for generations and it's your responsibility. And as I said, we are extraordinarily lucky to have you and your contribution to our country. So let me first start by just saying thank you, because it doesn't always get appreciated and people need to understand the contribution that you all make to our country. I certainly do, and as long as I have this job, I will always have your back. And as we know, it's been difficult the past few months for all of you, right? The wettest weather we've had pretty much on record, which is why, Selene as well encouraging us with other colleagues to expand our farming recovery funds to make sure that we could get grants of up to £25,000 to farmers who are affected by flooding. And above all, since I've had this job, I've made sure we focus on food production. Because whenever I talk to you and your colleagues, that's the thing I hear. It's like, we want to produce food. That is our primary purpose. Support us to do that, and that's what we've done. Made sure that we've reoriented all our farming schemes to support food production, increase farm productivity. It's why we've made sure that in our manifesto, if re-elected, there will be an extra £1 billion in support for farming in the next Parliament, all of it geared towards food production, because that's the most important thing. It's why, as David says, not only do we already now have a food security target, that we committed to, because we only grow something like 16% of our fruit in this country, 46% of our veg. We need to do a better job of that. We're going to go further and make that food security target legal, binding, in law, so that the entire government and country focuses on it. But when you're producing all of that food, we also need to make sure that you're treated fairly. You get a fair price for it, which is why I've ensured that we've laid new laws in Parliament in sectors like dairy, poultry, fresh produce, and eggs to ensure that you get fairness in the supply chain, that there's transparency in contracts. And those have started to come in, and if we're re-elected, more of them will come in too, because it's right that you work hard and you should be given a fair price for everything that you're doing. You'll have seen also that we've changed our approach to trade deals, making sure that you're not undercut, because what you produce is the highest quality anywhere in the world, and we need to maintain those high standards for all of you. And we will continue to support you with everything and anything that you need. Now, the contrast at this election is crystal clear. Because whilst we're going to do all those things to you, as David said, in the Labour manifesto, there were just 87 words about farming. No commitment to food production and food security. No commitment at all about the farming budget in the next Parliament. Forget about increasing it like we're going to do. They won't even say that they're going to protect it. Right? Like, that is the choice for you at this election, which is why it's so important that you come out and vote and you talk to your colleagues. Now, beyond farming, I also want to make sure that you have financial security. As David said, we've been through a tough few years as a country, COVID, Ukraine, and my primary job when I took on this role was to make sure I could deliver financial security to you and your families. And we have made progress, but there's more to go. And that comes clearly when you can see our approach to tax cuts. Now, I believe in a country, like all of you, where you should work hard. But when you work hard, you should be rewarded. That's why we're going to cut tax on national insurance. We're going to halve it in the next Parliament. For those of you who are thinking about setting up your own business, becoming self-employed, I know what a risk that is. But I want to create a country with that type of risk-taking, that culture of enterprise. Innovation is something that we support. So we're going to abolish national insurance for those who are self-employed in the next Parliament. For young couples who want to get on the housing ladder, I want to support them. I remember what it felt like to get the keys to my first flat. I believe in a country where everyone can own their own home, which is why we're going to abolish stamp duty for first-time buyers in the next Parliament. For those of you with young children, with families, I want you to be supported. So we're going to change how child benefit works to expand it to many more families, because family is perhaps, I think, the most important thing in all of our lives and deserves to be supported. And I also believe in a country where if you work hard all your life, if you put in, then when you retire, you should have the dignity and security that you deserve. That's why David introduced the triple lock and protected it, and it's why in this election we've put the triple lock plus on the table. So if we're re-elected, we're going to raise the threshold, delivering a tax cut for pensioners and making sure that the state pension never, ever pays tax. Now, in contrast, Labour haven't matched a single one of those things. So, for example, for the first time in our country's history, we'll have a retirement tax where pensioners are paying tax on the state pension. And worse than that, you add up all the things that they said they want to do, it comes to a £2,000 tax bill for every working family in our country. And I don't think that's right, and that's why I'm fighting so hard in this election to deliver the security for you and your families. And it's worse than that, because I fundamentally don't think that the Labour Party's values are the values of our country when it comes to things like net zero. We should get there, but we should get there in a sensible way, not saddling you all with enormous bills or damaging our energy security. We believe in compassion and fairness when it comes to migration, but we've got to be in control of our own borders, because that's just common sense, it's just fair, and we've got a plan to deliver that. And when it comes to welfare, what we've seen since the pandemic is far too many people who can work are being left on welfare and not supported into work. And I think we can change that for the better, reform the welfare system, support people into work and free up money that we can reinvest in tax cuts and public services. That's the right approach to our country. But above all, as David says, this election is about the future. It's about who's got the bold ideas. It's about who's got a clear plan to deliver a secure future for all of you. Now, it's not just in farming, it's across the board that the Conservative Party can do that to you. We are the ones that can deliver financial security. We are the ones that share your values when it comes to freedom, to opportunity, to aspiration, to security. And given everything that you've done for our country, for your community, I promise you, I will stand up for you, I will deliver for you, and I will fight incredibly hard to deliver that better future for you and your families. Thank you. Right. Now, I think we've got... Are we going to do some questions? Jerry, who's in charge of the questions here? All right. Sir, go for it.
Okay, Brian Griffiths, I'm a sheep farmer. I'm no public speaker, so apologies for my bungling. So I'd like to just touch on essentially three buzzwords: production, sustainability, and environment. As farmers, we love to produce, you said that. We love to do it sustainably, that makes sense for us. And we love the environment as much as anybody else. We love to see the hedges and wildlife and so on. You want those three things. The public at large want those three things, and we are ready and willing to do it. So where's the problem? It should be simple. But the reality is that somewhere along the way, there is... I'd rather check. Can you hear me, guys?
I can definitely hear you, but we are.
The lobbyists come into play. And by lobbyists, I mean people such as World Wildlife Fund or Rewilders, or even the likes of Natural England. And they have their own tunnel vision, and they have their own agenda. And what we tend to see is policy and schemes that are heavily influenced by them. They turn out they're complex, they're confused, but worst of all, they often have significant unintended consequences. So we find that these schemes can have an effect of driving farmers off good land, driving production abroad, and so on, all of which can be very negative. And it can disrupt the natural balance of things, if you like. So, and then we end up, it brings conflict. And so we see the likes of Selane. I've been with Selane when farmers are attacking Selane over a policy that DEF has brought in. And yet the reality is we're all trying to do the same thing. So to turn my ramblings into a question, can you give us an assurance that when you are forming policy, that you will consult with us? We have the environment, and we are the producers, and involve us in forming that policy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Look, excellent question. And the simple answer is, of course, yes. And I think you're right? Because a lot of farming policy got hijacked. It got influenced by people who weren't focused on the things that I was talking about. right? And first and foremost, we can't lose sight of the fact that food production is the most important thing. And that's what we are doing now. And I can assure you we will continue to do that. And actually, if you want to have a look at the alternative, you can just see what the Labour Party are doing in Wales, right? If you talk to any of your colleagues out there, as I'm sure you have, and I've been out there, they are terrified, right? They are absolutely terrified. When I meet farmers there, they are fearful for their livelihoods because Labour are doing exactly what you were worried about, which is top-down imposing targets on farmers and driving them off their land, right? Influenced by all the people that you said. They don't care about food security and food production. They don't care about the impact on jobs or people's livelihoods or incomes. They're in pursuit of ideological targets, in hoc to many of these interest groups, and that's me leaving farmers in Wales absolutely devastated and anxious about their future, right? That's what, if you replicated, by the way, what they were going to do in Wales here in England, it means something like 2 million acres of land would be taken out of food production. Just think about that. It would mean something like 40,000 jobs would be lost and 28,000 farms would be at risk of closing. Right? That is what the Labour Party is doing in Wales, and that's what I'm fighting very hard to stop. Because everything you said is right, Brian. I agree with it. Of course we should work with you to make sure the schemes are simple, they're easy to use, and they support you to do what you want, which is produce food, of course look after the environment at the same time, but fundamentally get on, produce the food that our country needs, and leave you to get on with it. All right, next, who have we got? Yes, sir.
Prime Minister, welcome to North Devon, a county very similar to your own, agriculture and tourism. And that's quality straw you stood on there. In fact, I need that for my daughter's wedding in 6 weeks' time. Farmers have access to unlimited solar and wind and would like the opportunity to harness the energy. But there's no grid connection and the planning process is difficult, to say the least. How do you move this forward? And on a personal note, we have put in planning for a pond to enhance the wildlife habitat. 6 months on, and the council are still asking for wildlife reports and biodiversity net gain. I'm not asking for 10 houses.
Yeah. All right. No, good question. I hear that a lot as well from my farmers. So I think the thing that we can do to make life easier for all of you is something called a permitted development right, which is where you just get to do things quite quickly without having to jump through a bunch of hoops. And actually, we've just passed a few of them. One of them is for those like David's neighbours who want to convert old agricultural buildings into more commercial ones like farm shops, right? So that is now very easy for you to do if you want to diversify and bring extra income into your farm. But the other one that we passed most recently was barn top and rooftop solar, making it far easier for those of you that want to put that in. It is now straightforward, quick process, and we're going to look to expand these permitted development rights. So where we can find specific things that we think are good for you, good for the community, good for the economy, where we make them fast track and easy to get through so you're not having to jump through tons of hoops or fill out lots of paperwork. So as I said, we've done a couple already that hopefully gives you a sense that I mean what I say on this, and if there are more opportunities in the future to go further, we should absolutely do that. I can't help you with the pond, though. I'm sorry about that. So. And congratulations on your daughter's wedding as well. It's great news.
Prime Minister, very good to see you in North Devon. I'm afraid I'm not from North Devon. I grew up on South Dartmoor, so I'm a moor person, and I thought I'd bring you a national park question. Brace yourself. Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank the Prime Minister for guaranteeing in his manifesto a guaranteed budget for agriculture for the next Parliament. That is something that is significantly lacking in other manifestos. And we know how many people will go knocking on the door at Number 10 and at DEFRA to try and get more money away from our budget. So thank you very much for that. And for listening to the lobbying on a lot of behalf. On to the national park. You've announced a new national park. There has to be a reason why every single person who thinks a national park is going to be in their back garden absolutely dreads it happening. And I've got one suggestion, because I like to keep things simple. My suggestion is that you have a third statutory responsibility, and that is that when you create a national park, our social and cultural well-being and economic well-being must be considered. Yep. Listen to this one.
That is a very good suggestion. So I have not one but two national parks in my part of the world, because we have the Dales and the Moors in North Yorkshire. And I've heard your suggestion and have thought actually about it in the past. I think there's a good argument for it. So I think those of you that no. Well, so those of you who don't know, so our national parks have these statutory objectives So when it comes to things like planning or supporting projects, if it's not, squarely economic development, they might say, oh, we can't do it. And there's an argument for saying, hang on, you've got to think more broadly than the narrow definition that you're given. So that's a very fair thing that we should definitely take away and have a look at, because I think I broadly agree with you, right? People think about our national parks or our countryside in the wrong way. Some of them think that they're museums. They're not, right? They're living, breathing places that only look like that. The Yorkshire Dales up near me, it looks like that, and people come to visit it because all your colleagues up there tend the landscape in a particular way, right? It is managed. And when those dry stone walls fall down, right, out of their own pockets, they say, well, let's put a dry stone wall back up, even though it's going to cost me 5-6 times more than putting up a regular fence, because, as I was saying, you care about your role as stewards of our landscape. And we need to get that right in these national parks. So, for example, where I am, I don't know about yours, 97% of the Yorkshire Dales National Park is private land owned by farmers. It's not some government land that's owned by the, by the government. It is owned individually by farmers, and making sure that we support them to achieve all our objectives is really important, and something I have, as I said, some sense of from home. But thank you for your question. All right, who else? Who's next? Who have we got? Yes, sir. And then we'll come over to you.
Prime Minister Lord Cameron, I just question, as Toby Ansdell, I farm nearby, just a couple of miles away, livestock farmer, okay, heavily involved in the local area in the, thank you, in the TB coal, okay?
Yeah.
We were part of the group that put the coal together in this area. The coal nationally has been a huge success, a 56% reduction in TB. Mm-hmm. We're also seeing, on top of that, hedgehogs, skylarks, all those, the side effects of it. We know that culling badgers is not the only issue to do with TB. There are other things that need to be done alongside, but at the moment it's the most effective because of the lack of vaccine coming forward. Most livestock farmers would quite happily accept a vaccine if it appeared, but it's not appearing any day soon. We need a commitment from an incoming government that the cull will continue in the form that it has been, because it's been a success. Mm-hmm. Prime Minister, can we have that commitment?
Yes, of course you can, because, look, I see firsthand the absolute devastation that TB causes to those of you that are impacted by it. Right? I grew up in a small family business. My mum was a pharmacist, had a shop, and it was our life. Right? And it's when something happens to that business, it affects all of you, not just financially, but emotionally, psychologically. And I see that firsthand talking to those of your colleagues that have been impacted by TB and what it means for them. So it's right that we do everything we can. And I'm pleased that we're making progress, as I think you acknowledged. The outbreaks this past year are the lowest they've been in 20 years. Right? And part of that is because, as you said, the success of the badger culls where we've done them have brought the incidence rates down by just over 50%. So that shows that that plan is working, and I can give you that commitment, right? I believe in the science, and yes, of course, a vaccine is good, and we're investing in research and development, but that is going to take some time. So culls have to be part of the solution, and particularly when it comes, as you said, to badgers, when you look around the world, there's no country that I think I know of where they've eliminated TB in cattle without eliminating it in whether it's possums or badgers or the equivalent wildlife, right? Which is why I think culls are important, and you'll see that in our manifesto. I can give you that reassurance and commitment today. And again, we are the only party at this election who can give you that commitment to demonstrate to you that I understand what you're going through. I know what it takes to back you. That's what you will always get from us. Right. I think we got time for one more. Yeah, perfect, sir.
I don't think I need this.
That's great.
Here, well, you didn't come quite as far as I traveled as far as I did. I came from Sydney, Australia. But let me say this, as a broad general statement, from what I've listened to in the last couple of weeks that I've been in this country, and I've seen and heard what the opposition is saying, that they're targeting things that they believe you haven't. And then they say they're going to grow the economy. Well, that's important to all of you, whether you're in farming country or whether you're in manufacturing or whatever. And the only way, as the Prime Minister would know, the only way you grow the economy is to create the environment in which the private sector can thrive and grow. Governments don't generate, they encourage, they provide the platform from which that part of the sector of our community can thrive. And I'm sorry, but if Labour get in, they're going to do the exact opposite. They're going to impede the very people who want to grow and continue with what you've developed in this country. And And so, Prime Minister, please, on behalf of all the local farmers, business people and everyone else, keep it doing what you're doing, because it's absolutely critical to the welfare of this nation.
Thank you. Yeah, well, thank you very much for that. That's probably a good note for me to end on by saying this, and that is the type of country that I want to build. I talked about my small business background, but ultimately all of you are how we grow the economy. Right? It's people like you who are working incredibly hard, trying to build something for your families that you want to pass on to them, which, by the way, Labour today just again confirmed they will not support agricultural property relief, right, which is a £600,000 tax bill for an average farm wanting to pass that on to the next generation. Right? I don't believe in that. I believe in a country where we support aspiration, where we support people who are working hard, ambitious for their futures, taking risks like all of you do. I know it's not easy, right? And you should be applauded for that. You should be supported for that. And that's why we're cutting your taxes across the board to create that environment for all of you, to reward your risk-taking, your innovation, because that's how we'll build an incredible country. Right? And if we can build an incredible country where people like all of you are thriving, where your hard work is rewarded, we can achieve great things. I know the last couple of years have been tough. They've been tough for all of you. They've been tough for everyone. But we have now turned a corner, thanks to everyone's resilience and sacrifice. Inflation down, the economy growing, wages rising, right? The future is there for us. If we get this right at this election, if you put me back in Downing Street, I can deliver for all of you. Right? We are going to do the big, bold things that are necessary. We've got a plan that is working, and more importantly than all of that, right, my values are your values, and we will build a country founded on those values of opportunity, of aspiration, of security. Right? That is what all of us believe, and that is what I can deliver for all of you. So thank you very much for having me here today. It's been a great pleasure.